Welcome to the Talent MBA Expert Series.
Yep. Thank you so much. Thank you for
Yep.
having me.
Absolutely. I'm going to ask you the same question I like to ask all our guests, which is tell us about yourself, your background, and what led you to create Laminar Scientific.
Yeah, for sure. So I am an aeronautical engineer from Purdue University. I started working at Collins Aerospace, an aerospace company, I was working there for 6 years. Got some really good project management, engineering skills, engineering leadership skills. And during that time, during the COVID period, I had some extra time on my hands, started tinkering with some ideas I had as a kid in Indonesia, um, for wave energy. I grew up near the ocean, and always noticed how steady the ocean waves were compared to wind and solar. I always thought, if we could capture this, it would be, a very good, steady source of energy that's very predictable. So, took some ideas and started working on it, filed some patents, hired an intern, built some prototypes, and we showed it at a conference. And at this conference, the International Conference on Ocean Energy, we got a lot of good feedback. And that's when I realized I need to do something and put this in the water, start a company. So started a company in 2021. We've been developing our device. We've pivoted our design several times, uh, and we have now come up with a minimum viable product and a go-to-market product, and we're developing it at the moment.
Well, you're true to form, right? A Purdue engineering grad.
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so that brings me to the next question because at
Yeah.
its core, your company is an engineering enterprise.
Yeah.
So can you speak a bit about the actual devices that your company manufactures and what do they actually do?
Yeah, so our device essentially floats in the water. It's moored. It's anchored uh, to the seabed, and it's not too far away from shore. As it moves with the waves, it converts that kinetic energy into electricity. So it generates electricity as it moves, and that electricity is just sent back to shore or sent to a charging station nearby. This is what we do. We're building a floating device that converts energy into electricity, essentially.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so for island communities and coastal cities, to be able to tap into a renewable energy source literally at their doorstep is a huge game changer.
Yeah.
So can you talk about any case studies where this is happening
Mhm.
or has happened with a client that you work with?
Yeah. So in Southeast Asia, there are several islands that we've looked at. Mentawai Island is one, where they have unreliable source of energy. They also have a they're very high energy costs, about three times that of Java mainland, the Java island. You got to keep importing diesel. Uh, you don't have economies of scale, right? So any power plant that you have, it's small. Uh, you don't have an integrated grid like you have in mainland. So energy prices are just very high. So by tapping into energy that's all around them, we can slash the energy costs by more than half. That's what our study has shown.
From a layperson's perspective, the renewable energy potential from ocean waves is fascinating and makes perfect sense given how long we have tapped into hydropower, whether it's dams or water mills. But I'm sure there's some complexities involved. And I was hoping that you could speak to the scientific limitations or
Yeah.
business challenges that you have to confront as you expand and grow your company.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So the ocean, has certain inherent challenges. First of all, there's biofouling and corrosion that are at much higher rates than normal, you know, land, uh, 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 land devices don't face it as much, essentially. So our strategy has been to reduce the number of parts, physical parts, moving parts. So our system has five times less number of moving parts than existing systems. So we actually pivoted our design philosophy even to cater uh, to this new philosophy. That's one. Second one is storms, right? When a storm hits, it's very powerful. So existing competitors or existing prior art in the field uh, often over-engineered to survive these storm conditions. So we built it like a tank to survive storm conditions. But when you build it to be extremely strong and like over-engineered, it's very expensive and it doesn't work in nominal conditions. It doesn't work very well. It's not optimal for the average condition. What we did was we designed for the average condition, but our system changes shape in the extreme condition. So when it changes shape, it's kind of like, your car, instead of driving a Humvee to work because you're afraid of an accident, you're driving, an efficient car like, I don't know, Prius, but you have seatbelts and airbags. You have these safety systems that protect you when something bad does happen, or if something bad does happen. So that's essentially what our philosophy is. So these are the different methods that we're employing to reduce cost overall and still operate efficiently.
This talk about manufacturing efficiency, right, and
Mhm.
optimization is really important.
Mhm.
And for manufacturing startups, typically they require large investments.
Mhm.
And in your case, I believe DOE, the Department of Energy, is your biggest funder so far. So, what you've encountered
Mhm.
when you talk to investors between governments and VC firms, how have you noticed the difference, how they look at your business in terms of potential funding?
Yeah, so it is more difficult as a manufacturing company, as a physical hardware company, as a deep tech company. Um, Currently, we've got more private funding than DOE, actually, by a small margin, but we see an easier path to get funding via the DOE, but we also see a longer research time frame when it comes to, if we only focused on the DOE, it'll take many more years versus the private funders will incentivize you, or will push you to do things a lot faster, and that's we want to have a mix of both. The strategies that we're using really mitigate risk when it comes to manufacturing. So, for instance, we're building a miniature system, and that's going to be our first product. That's our MVP. We're selling that to a Floridian customer. Um, so a miniature system is something we can build in-house. It's easy. It's lower risk. It costs less, and we can already start getting data in on site in the open water. In addition to that, our first real revenue generating method is a partnership with a Southeast Asian energy company. And that is actually a paid pilot for a large scale system, right? So our product there is actually a patent license and the know-how to build this system with the Southeast Asian folks. So they'll get all of Southeast Asia as for this patent license. So it's a good deal because we get to start gathering data in miniature scale in Florida. We get to also then, build our large scale system with them, with the Southeast Asian folks. They're the ones paying for the manufacturing. They're the ones building it. We're giving them the know-how. So that's our product. The product is not hard. The product is a license. It's the know-how essentially.
Mhm.
And once we've done a lot of learning, these are two de-risking methods. Once we've done a lot of learning from these two methods, the miniature scale paid pilot and the large scale paid pilot, our goal is to then use contract manufacturing and take on the rest of the world.
You're based out of Atlanta. You have
Mhm.
a pilot, you said, with a client out of Florida. Are there any other communities in the US that you foresee perhaps working with down the road?
Yeah, so when I went to South by Southwest last year, met a lot of different folks from from Hawaii, from Washington, the state of Washington. One of the opportunities that I saw was Native American communities that are off grid, and they're struggling with steady energy. And what we can really do is if they're in an energetic region, we can provide our devices and provide steady energy. As the pilots are being done, our goal is to do a US pilot as well, and go from there.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. Obviously, there's a lot more happening and more to come with regards to your scientific journey as a startup founder. And I really appreciate you giving us a glimpse into the innovation that's happening with renewable energy. We'll have more questions for you that our audience can read on the Talent MBA website.